On a day the Maldives President Mohamed Muizzu landed in Beijing to sign bilateral agreements, China's state media in an editorial referred to India's diplomatic row with the Maldives and called for an open-minded approach to looking at South Asian issues. The Maldives government has suspended 3 ministers over their derogatory comments on Prime Minister Modi's visit to Lakshadweep. The Maldivian government has distanced itself from the insulting comments by the 3 ministers and called the matter their personal opinion that doesn't represent the views of the government.
China wading into the India-Maldives row a day after the Maldivian government was forced to suspend 3 ministers whose derogatory social media posts over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Lakshadweep visit and suggestions by Indian social media users that Lakshadweep can be an alternate tourism destination to Maldives kicked off a firestorm. An opinion piece in the Chinese mouthpiece Global Times said, China has always treated Maldives as equal, New Delhi should stay open-minded, and that Chinese assistance will make Maldives prosperous. This as the Maldives President Mohamed Muizzu, who was elected to power last November after an India Out campaign, reached China for his first bilateral visit after assuming power. Both India and China have jostled for influence in Maldives, a country that lies at the strategic crossroads of the Indian Ocean. As the closest big neighbor to Maldives, India has shared a strong relationship for decades. But now Beijing is aggressively vying for that space and wants to use Maldives to expand its influence.
China's decision to wade into this so-called tension between New Delhi and the Maldives is bad news for Delhi. It comes at a time when China has been establishing a huge presence in the Indian Ocean region. These are the Maldives. This is Djibouti, where China operates its first overseas base. This is the area they're vying for influence. They've already got a deep water port in Hambantota in Sri Lanka. And then, of course, over here is Pakistan, where there is a strong Chinese influence. Therefore, New Delhi is concerned about the growing influence of China in these waters, which is why it's critical for New Delhi to ensure that the relationship with the Maldives prospers.
In a further escalation, India summoned the Maldives envoy in Delhi, and the Indian High Commissioner in Malé visited the Maldives Foreign Ministry in what the Indian government said was a pre-arranged meeting. Such has been the social media backlash that Indian aggregator Ease My Trip announced it was suspending all Maldives flight and hotel bookings, while Make My Trip reported a huge jump in searches for Lakshadweep on its app.
Lakshadweep has seen a remarkable 3,400% increase in searches ever since our Honorable PM visited the islands.
We believe that Lakshadweep and many other places in India can be much better than other international tourism destinations like Maldives. And we believe that our Honorable Prime Minister has done the right thing by promoting Lakshadweep at a very timely manner.
According to Government of Maldives data, Indians have formed the biggest chunk of tourist arrivals in the country for 2 straight years. The big question, will this row affect both tourism in Maldives and India's relations with the island nation? With Vishnu Som, Bureau Report, NDTV.
Well, joining us now, Maria Ahmed Didi, the ex-defense minister of the Maldives. We are joined by Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, who handled the Maldives from the External Affairs Ministry. We are also joined by Dr. R.K. Radhakrishnan. He's a journalist and an expert on affairs linked to the Maldives. Thank you all very much for being with us. Maria Ahmed Didi, was it your sense that one of China's primary intentions when they were close to the Maldives was to keep track of India militarily?
I think, Maldives should make their own decisions. It is not based on what is best for anybody else except Maldivians. From time immemorial, Maldives have had a very close relationship with India. In fact, we Maldivians, as I always say, we share the same sort of culture, we eat the same sort of food, our language is similar, our practices are similar, we look similar, we are the closest neighbor, we are just about 50 minutes from the southern tip of India, and defense cooperation between our 2 countries have always been there, and there is no way, we are geographically also closest to India. We share the same borders, so the security concerns is mutual for both countries, so it's easier to have a partnership. A stronger Maldives means a stronger India, as your defense minister in the defense conference we have also stated, and a stronger India, a stronger MNDF, it means a stronger...
No, but ma'am, I understand that. I understand that. But ma'am, my question was quite specific, because as a former defense minister of Maldives, you are in a position to answer this. Wasn't China's intention to actually step up its military presence, perhaps on the Maldives as well, through observatories, which they had promoted or wanted to work with the Maldives on, and through other means?
I would hope not. I hope that, we stay neutral in all these things, and that the defense partnership with India, which we have had, and the defense cooperation that we have had grows from strength to strength.
But that's the problem, ma'am, because that defense partnership seems to be evaporating. The helicopter which was operated by the Indian Coast Guard or the Indian Navy, you've said that you don't. The Maldives government have said that they don't want that anymore. Indian officials and they're just engineers, personnel, etc., they've been told that no, you can leave. This was being served for humanitarian purposes almost. There were search and rescue operations being done by these helicopters. So when you say that you hope that that relationship with India builds up, is it not your worry that military relationship, which was very good, has in fact evaporated?
What Muizzu and his people were saying when they came is that because of what they presume to be thousands of troops being present in the Maldives, that the sovereignty of this country is at stake. But they have come and they have seen that what we said even in the beginning, that we have disclosed the numbers to the parliament and everywhere, and we have always maintained, that we have only about 89 people here, all technical people here involved in a humanitarian role. They have always been helping our people, lifting our people, having medical evacuation, search and rescue. They've always come here on our request to help us.
Okay. Farooq Khan, the former administrator of Lakshadweep, let me come across to you. You've obviously had an opportunity to see the growing influence of China across the waters of the Indian Ocean. Was it your concern as well as an observer that they were trying to step up their presence in the Maldives, not just for economic purposes, but also to keep an eye on India and to increase their say in the Indian Ocean?
Well, to my understanding, it's a sinister design of China. The very fact that they had been building this string of pearls, and the Arabian Sea and the adjoining portion of Indian Ocean, over which, thanks to Lakshadweep, we have a very large area of exclusive economic zone. China is always hungry for fishing in those areas, and the presence of Indian Army, Indian Navy and Coast Guard had been denying them this. The very fact that they have come to Maldives, beside their some kind of military ideas or military ambitions, they definitely have this game of exploiting Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea to the hilt, and they are firing from the shoulders of Maldivians, and whatsoever has happened in previous couple of days is by design, sheer design, and it was not just three persons one after the other getting up and all occupying very responsible positions in the government and saying such despicable words against our most respected Prime Minister, who is not only a leader of our country but is looked upon as one of the global leaders So there's absolutely no doubt that China is playing a very, very smart but a very dirty game through their cohorts and Maldivian government.
Right. Ambassador Bhatia, there is this bizarre online battle which has been waging between many over here who feel deeply offended by what these three leaders in the Maldives had to say. But if India, in a sense, economically boycotts the Maldives, our tourists don't go over there, ultimately who is to gain? It is China which is to gain, right? And that's our worry.
Thank you, Vishnu. I will answer your specific question in 2 or 3 points. I think nobody can justify what the Maldivian officials said. Their words, their language, the occasion was completely objectionable and unacceptable, and therefore the reaction in this day and age of social media is also quite understandable. Secondly, as far as wherever Indians want to go for tourism, they are free to do so. If they don't want to go to Maldives, I think nobody can compel them. Whether they go to Lakshadweep or somewhere else, it is their privilege. And today, domestic policy and foreign policy are so deeply interconnected that the execution of foreign policy and diplomacy, they cannot be exempted or insulated from public sentiment. But my third point is directly relevant to what you have said. We have to find a way to recognize that for strategic, political, diplomatic, economic, security, and geopolitical factors, Maldives is an important neighbor for India. And India is even more important neighbor for Maldives. India has done a lot in the past 20 to 30 years for Maldives, but we recognize that gratitude is not a currency that works very much in the field of international affairs. So essentially, my conclusion would be that while what is happening is understandable, unfortunately, the timing is very poor. President of Maldives is sitting in China, and in a way, this can cause a setback to India's diplomatic efforts to make Maldives understand or appreciate our perspective. So in the days ahead, in the weeks ahead, Indian diplomacy would have a big challenge as to how to bring the India-Maldives relations to a normal key.
Yeah. Dr. Radhakrishnan, what exactly is Beijing looking to do now in the Maldives? The Maldivian president is in Beijing right now. In the days ahead, could we see what? An enhancement of Beijing's economic interests in the Maldives, more projects that they invest in, a military presence? What exactly could take place?
All of this, Vishnu, thank you for the opportunity. Now we have Muizzu, who is really in a very bad place, crying on the shoulders of the Chinese, and this was aided by the Indian trolls. Now he's going to sit there and cry his heart out, and he has 2 elections to fight. As the former defense minister Maria Didi will agree with me, he has the March general elections coming up to the parliament, and then there are the Malay council elections. Muizzu was the former chairman of the municipality. You should also know that this is a municipal chairman who has been elevated to the position of a president. Of course, it's not like the Indian scene. He has to manage, say, roughly double the population. But the problem is that it's a very immature government where a lot of people have not joined the government yet for fear of earning Yamin's wrath. And all the good work that, Ms. Maria Didi and the others put in the past 5 years has completely been laid to waste. I think India should show some more understanding. And I think it was Ambassador Bhatia who wrote in the Hindu that, it calls for a renewed strategy given the fact that China is becoming such a major player in this region, and China is a reality in this region. We have to recalibrate our responses, and we have to be prepared for what is coming next. And on the Lakshadweep part, let me just mention one thing. Lakshadweep is really not prepared to take on the, whatever that, the kind of crowd that is flocking to the Maldives. 20 lakhs last year from India, fantastic number. only one plane goes to Agatti from Kochi. It's a 60-seater. It can't take more than 50 people because it has to come to Bangalore, and there is no refueling facility in Agatti. And the Bangaram island, where there was a casino group was operating a facility, a kind of resort, it has 25-30 beds. And that's all there is. And in Tinakara, Cheriam and Suheli, there are lots of problems, the Pandarambhumi issue and all of that. So in all, Lakshadweep has only about 100 odd rooms. And it is impossible to, at this point of time, do anything much about replacing Maldives with Lakshadweep.
Absolutely. Commodore Seshadri Vasan also with us. Commodore, we'll just play out some images of what China has been doing in the Indian Ocean. We've got pictures which will play out of their first overseas base in Djibouti. This is actually Chinese warships in Karachi. That's another factor. And then, of course, there's the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. It's a deep water port which they control. Now, this is no coincidence, right? It's all deliberate. Why do we need to be worried about what's happening in the Maldives?
No, I think I would like to compliment you for taking up this issue, which is trending in social media, in all the TVs, all the papers, etc. Why it's become important is that for the last 5 years or so, we had a pro-India government. I'm not going to say anti-China, but pro-India government, who synchronized their plans, their operations, their vision with that of India, and India went all out of its way to support Maldives' aspirations. And this has not been today. It's been happening for the last 30-40 years. All of us remember Operation Cactus, which happened in 1988, where we rushed to the aid. So the geographic location is such that it's not China that will come rushing to help them, but it's India, Indian Navy, Indian Coast Guard. It's also the very reason why we had this agreement to position our Dorniers and ALH helicopters operated by our people. There are no issues in training their people, and in fact, so many of the MADF are being trained with us. So it's not a new issue that suddenly the government has changed and everything has to be now thrown out of that place, as was perhaps an election gimmick by the present electee. He's sitting in China as of today, and obviously China is playing its games to encircle India, and this is what we are aware of. It's not anything new. Whether it's in Bangladesh, whether it's Myanmar, whether it's Sri Lanka, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's Djibouti, they have their assets all over, and through political systems, through economic estranglement, through BRI, through MSR, they have a vision for economic and strategic subjugation of the developing countries, and that's something which is worrisome. And India on its side, despite being just about a $5 trillion economy, we may be the third largest, but there's still a $5 trillion economy, and there's a lot more that we have to do. On Dr. Radhakrishnan's point about, Maldives does not have adequate facilities, etc. In India, the Indian tourists have many choices. They don't have to only look at Lakshadweep. They can go to Andaman Nicobar, they can go to Lakshadweep, they can go to the hills, they can go to the lakes. So, this is not available in Maldives. Therefore, I don't think, it's right to say that we are competing with Maldives. What is the size of Maldives after all? Or what is the number of population which is there? So, so it's not about competing, but it's a kind of signaling that people's power has sent to Maldives. You can see the kind of sentiments that have been there. And this is what is of something that Maldives would need to be worried about. And even our other neighboring countries will also worry about the kind of response that India
Right, Commodore, just half a second. I just want to keep the strike rotating. I wanted to go back to Mr. Farooq Khan. Sir, as a former administrator to Lakshadweep, would you agree that it's not Maldives versus Lakshadweep? The Lakshadweep Islands are extremely fragile. They do not have the base to sustain large-scale tourism. The Maldives have more than 1,100 islands. There are presently only 26 islands in the Lakshadweep chain, just less than 32 square kilometers. So to suggest that Lakshadweep can replace the Maldives isn't perhaps correct, is it?
Well, Lakshadweep was never designed by the god to, have few lakh of people coming to the islands together and then start trampling around. Let me take you back a little bit. In 2014, when Modi government came into being, the first thing which was done by the Honorable Prime Minister was to have a proper plan made for development of 10 islands, and that also included Lakshadweep. Then immediately Niti Aayog was tasked with the job of planning, making a holistic plan for the development of these islands, especially with regard to the tourism aspect. Towards that end, lot of experts were involved, and all this was being done in order to ensure that the pristine glory of the islands is maintained. It's kept as an exclusive tourist destination, and every single island, whether inhabited or not, was checked by experts, and it was decided, and it was kind of surveyed as to how many tourists can one island accommodate. It all took some time.
Right.
Then, because of the previous governments, before 2014, not any government had given any attention towards these islands. Just, I'll tell you, only 2 islands were having desalination plants. Rest of the population was left to drinking, that salt water. And it is this government, led by our Prime Minister Modi ji, that today we have almost all the major inhabited islands. Not one, but some of the islands have 2 desalination plants. Now every single human living in Lakshadweep is getting potable water. Now coming to the infrastructure. Infrastructure doesn't get created. A UT which was neglected for more than 60 years cannot develop into a major tourist destination overnight.
Right.
Now the God has bestowed its greatest beauty towards these islands, but now to cater to the expected arrival of the tourists, lot of infrastructure had to be built. Already plans are afoot. Already the present administration, I am given to understand, they have done all the exercises.
Right.
Shortly you would start seeing infrastructure coming up.
Right, and I would just add a word of caution there, Mr. Khan, as somebody who's
I'll take 5 more seconds. Thanks to the Prime Minister's visit, all that has gotten a fillip, and now you would see that Lakshadweep would be. No, we are not in competition with. Neither we would ever be. Right. We don't want to be, because Lakshadweep is a beautiful God-given place.
Right. So, Mr. Khan, I need to wrap this up because I'm out of time. But as somebody who spent a great deal of time over there, filming documentaries among anything else, one would also perhaps need to consider the fact that there is erosion of the coral base on those islands. The infrastructure is, as you mentioned, very, very minimal. The availability of potable drinking water, very small. Infrastructure for transport, very limited as well. Even if there is tourism, it would put immense stress on very, very delicate islands, and that's something that we perhaps need to look out for. Global warming is a reality. The islands are low-lying. In the future, what happens? That's a big concern.